We had Qualcomm report their latest numbers as well. So let's break that down with Christopher Davis, partner at Hudson Value Partners. Christopher, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Marilla.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of the numbers coming in. This is a company that is trying to diversify. I understand that, and they did have some misses in the numbers. What was your overall impression?
My overall impression was that the quarter that was pretty good. It was up 5% on a year-over-year basis. Earnings per share came in about 11 cents ahead of consensus. So all good news there, particularly as a Qualcomm shareholder. You know, it's one of the lower multiple technology names out there. Unfortunately, I think we're seeing a reaction in the post-market to the guidance. And the two words that are the most important in the guidance are memory shortage. And this is something that's going to affect a lot of hardware makers in general. Just the shortage of memory right now that's slowing down all sorts of production and the manufacture of all sorts of chips.
Yeah, we know Intel was down as well because of they're having problems with manufacturing as well. How long could this last?
You know, I think as long as we see this big demand cycle in AI, that's probably what's going to gobble up a lot of the capacity that's out there in the memory market. I think it's probably going to be at least a 1 to 2 quarter event. We're going to have to see what the commentary and the guidance is on the earnings. We know the guidance for the coming quarter for Qualcomm was weaker than the street expected. But I thought it was notable that the CEO in the comments, who generally is very, very straight with the street, gave a pretty wide range in the guide, much wider than usual. And what I'm going to want to listen for and see is, are these sales that are going to be missed? Or are these sales that are just going to be deferred into future quarters? Yeah. Qualcomm really is a leader in consumer technology and consumer electronics chips. So, you know, people need to replace things when they break.
We talked about the fact that this is a company that's trying to diversify. How is it doing, and what is it trying to diversify to?
Yeah, so Qualcomm's biggest customer is Apple, and they were a leader in the modems that go into the iPhones for many years. Apple is transitioning away from Qualcomm chips using internal modems. Their second biggest customer is Samsung, Xiaomi, and they have a huge business in both automotive and the Internet of Things that they're really trying to grow. And in some ways, Qualcomm reminds me a little bit of some of the big pharma companies like Merck and Amgen that reported earlier this week, in that the street really just needs to get some confidence in the quality of their pipeline and the quality of new products going forward to help them ultimately re-rate higher. Unfortunately, I think this memory shortage means that part of the story is going to take longer than people may have been thinking.
Has it been dragged down? I'm just pulling up. There we go. It has been dragged down with everything else today, but actually it started trending down a lot earlier than that. What led to that pull down?
Yeah, I think part of it is, you know, this is the year that their share of the Apple modem business was expected to go down to about 20% from a higher level, go down to 0 next year. It's almost like a bit like they're having a drug come off patent and, you know, have some generic competition out there. So I think that's part of it. And I also think that, you know, Qualcomm is working hard to show the street that they have a really strong AI narrative, not just in AI at the edge through Copilot Plus PCs and Snapdragon chips that are in Android phones, but also through their recent acquisition of a company called AlphaWeave to get them into the data center business. So I think it's just they weren't necessarily part of the strongest part of the AI narrative.
Capital expenditure, like many of these companies, moving up and beyond an estimate that was put out, $550 million, roughly 49 is what they're going with. The estimate had been in the $400 million range. Any concerns about that?
You know, Qualcomm's, at least before the earnings report, was about a $159 billion company, so still a small in comparison to the other companies out there. And, you know, they did $12.2 billion in revenue roughly in the quarter. So I don't think that amount of CapEx is out of line, and it may have had something to do with some recent acquisitions they've made.
Okay, should they be spending more, I guess, is the other side?
Yeah, I think it's very possible that they could be spending more, certainly on the R&D side, but they're getting great results in Snapdragon. It's the leading platform for Android phones, showing up in more and more high-end automotive applications. They have this one unified CPU system that runs everything from the infotainment system to the cruise control and adaptive radar and everything like that. So I think they're in all the right places. It may just take a little bit more time than people were expecting.
Yeah, and we should remind people that Apple, although we use it widely in North America, around the world, a lot more people do use the Samsung or the Android system.
Yeah, about 70% of the world is Android. So even if they're losing Apple business, there's still an awful lot of Samsung and Xiaomi phones out there for Qualcomm to be providing modems for.
Does the company have anything else in its pipe that it's going to explore or you're hearing about?
I think it's really just growing, the PC business, which, in high-end laptops, the laptops over $800 in Christmas 2024, they went from 0% market share to 10% market share. I'm hoping we get some more commentary today about what their market share in that has come to, because they really entered that business from a standing stop and are just taking share from Intel and AMD, which shows you how small and narrow a moat business semiconductors can be. But if they keep growing that IoT, which they're a leader in, the automotive piece, which is strong, and they're going to still have that smartphone business. I think they're in good shape. They're in all the right places. The problem is if they can't get the memory, it doesn't matter how good their demand is if they can't get the product out there.
Yeah.
But that's not unique to Qualcomm. We're going to see this in a lot of companies. Even Apple, which reported last week, said they had very strong iPhone sales, but they were a little concerned about the coming quarter because they just don't know if they're going to be able to meet demand based on memory supplies. That was their biggest constraint too.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's an industry-wide problem.
All right, one to watch. Christopher Davis, thanks for joining us.